So we have a young'un who puts on a virtual reality headset that takes him into a different game world. Plot twist, he cannot really leave the game world, and if he dies in the game world, he dies in real life. No worries, because he has his homie Samurai Tiffany, big bitty waifu that dies, so we find another big bitty waifu that doesn't die. So now he joins this Night Order, and after him and his big bitty waifu share a big long smooch, it turns out that the leader of the Night Order is discovered to be the final boss, so now they have to fight the final boss. Turns out the final boss, however, is literally overpowered and he paralyzes everybody except the main character because honorable duels. Well, luckily for him and literally every single other player of this world, his eyes go Super Saiyan and he beats the final boss. This comes at a sacrifice though, his wife who technically dies in the game, but luckily for him, a pervert on the outside transports her soul into another game to preserve her life. So now homeboy goes into this other world, and in this other world he meets an absolute baddie. Slim waist, pretty face, and she got a big bank. The only bad part is, that's actually his cousin. Sweet home Alabama. So after being provocatively touched by like 30 other women, he somehow manages to save his wife and absolutely punish the man who attempted to have his way with her by brutally impaling him and destroying his head. All done virtually, of course. Then physically, I think he violates his hand with a knife or something, I don't know. So now homie over here is recruited by the defense agency and they want him to hunt down homeboy that can shoot people in the game and kill them in real life. But homie that shoots people at death isn't really a god. The real story is that his accomplice injects them with something that kills them, and they have this nice ass timing where the second he shoots them, he injects them. It's amazing. So now they're on their way to kill Glass's waifu, but my main character here cannot have this, so he goes to save her, and in this process he gains another member of his harem. And so now we enter this sad arc with a lot of character development for a certain character that I call Big Bitty Waifu with chestnut hair. And so we meet this girl named Yuki who actually has AIDS. She is constantly in the virtual world because in the real world she's literally a fetus. Not literally, of course. She's more like a vegetable. Well, after a lot of crying, the girl dies and gives Asuna, which I call Big Bitty Waifu with chestnut hair, a nice ass sword skill. Now enough about VR, let's get into AR. In this game, Ordinal Scale, your actual physical fitness has an impact on how good you do. Big chunky boys ain't gonna do too well. Well, it turns out that if you were playing Ordinal Scale and you also played in Sword Art Online, which is the first game, your memories are harvested, which lead to extreme brain damage, maybe even death. Even though he's physically unfit, our main character does some nice ass plot armor grinding and somehow manages to beat the final boss. And beat the dude that's actually pretty physically fit. He then obtains a nice ass sword in which he solos many bosses. So after all this is done, he's recruited by Wrath. He's sent into this virtual world, but it's really not a game world, it's an actual world, but just virtual. The NPCs are technically real people just without physical bodies in our world. Well, one day he's attacked by the last member of Deathgun, and because the brain damage is so severe, he is sent into this virtual world to recover. In this virtual world, he meets best homie Yujo, and the two of them go off to save Alice or find Alice or something like that. Well, they eventually do that, but then they find out that the administrator of this world is an absolute piece of shit, so they have to actually beat her. Well, luckily for us, this anime is full of plot armor, and our main character here manages to actually beat the final boss at the cost of his best friend's life. Due to him blaming himself for his best friend's death, he actually loses short circuits or something like that and loses his sense of ego. That's not good news because the American states are now getting involved. And they want to kidnap Alice, which is the artificial AI that him and Yujo actually tried to save or something like that. Well, after a long and drawn out war, plot armor once again comes into play when Kirito has to save his waifu. Correction, his waifus. Well, he does manage to beat the final boss, or not the final boss, it's the actual person. The price for this though is that now he has to spend 200 years in the game world. On the outside it isn't really 200 years, it's a lot shorter I think. Luckily for him, Big Bitty Waifu with chestnut hair comes to stay with him. So staying behind, the two of them become king and queen. Eventually, however, they exit this world with the help of their outside friends, and when they come outside it turns out that the AI Alice has actually been given a robotic body. Pretty poggers, pretty poggers. And that's about it for all of Sword Art Online that has currently been made into an anime. If you enjoyed, why don't you just drop a like, maybe drop a comment if you didn't enjoy, and subscribe if you want to see more. Until next time, toodaloo.